And welcome to the studios of Triple H 100.1 FM. This is Alexi Boyd. Thank you so much for joining me for another fabulous week of learning here on Small Biz Matters. Firstly, I'd like to make a really exciting announcement, which is that this is our 6th year. So we are now 6 years on air here at the lovely studios at Triple H 100.1. And I'm very excited to say that it's been 6 years of just glorious, interesting interviews. I remain curious and intrigued and looking forward to lots more interviews just like the ones we've got today. We've also cracked 10,000 downloads, so thank you so much for all of our listeners out there and our supporters. And just keep on looking after community radio and keep looking for really good quality small business education, because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of people out there who claim to be, I would say, advocates in their fields, but they're not really. They're just looking for their own interests. So have a think about who you consider to be your advocate and people who look after you. And today we've got two fantastic guests coming up on the program. We're going to be talking to Nicole O'Brien first, who is the CEO of Fishburners. And those of you who are familiar with the Sydney landscape will know that there are a bunch of really great incubators and accelerators out there for small businesses. And she's going to be talking through the process of what it means to be in one of those programs. Then later at 9:30, I've got Dale Beaumont, who's going to be joining us. He is from Business Blueprint. Now, as well as being one of those rah-rah guys who stands up on stage and gets you really excited about being in business, he's very generous with his information and all of that he's learned in running a number of businesses himself. And he's also very supportive of the local business community. And for that, I thought I'd invite him on the program and he can share with us some of his secrets about processes and procedures and really nailing it. But first, let's have a chat to Nicole O'Brien. She is the CEO of Fishburners, which, as I mentioned, is one of the accelerator programs in Sydney. So what exactly is that? Startup hubs, accelerators, incubators. It sounds like a bit of a machine complex that's out there, and they seem to be popping up all over the place. Some are independent and others are run through university programs and through government. And what are they, and how do they give businesses the edge when starting out? Are they just for techpreneurs who innovate in the digital world, or other industries and sectors involved too? CEO of Fishburners, Nicole O'Brien, is with us, and it's a not-for-profit enterprise dedicated to making the hardest thing you've ever done easier by providing the best facilities, resources, education support, and community of like-minded people. Welcome to the program, Nicole.
Oh, well, thank you, Alexi. It's great to be here with you.
Now, I'm really interested to find out all about these programs, because they seem to be all over the place. Little universities are running them for their students, and I'm really fascinated to know what one of these programs mean and what it means to be going through the program. Tell us a bit about Fishburners to begin with.
Well, Fishburners was established almost 9 years ago now by a couple of guys who had spent some time over in Silicon Valley and saw how powerful it was for a group of like-minded people to come together, really, who were working on tech-based solutions at the time. Being over there and then coming back to Sydney, they saw that there was a real need for something like that here. And so they basically bankrolled setting up a small startup hub in Ultimo. And really that's where it all began. And since then, I think, governments and corporates and universities have all seen the incredible value in nurturing and supporting people who have, great ideas, and particularly ideas in, the tech-based industries where they can really address a large market and grow quickly. I think that's really what differentiates a startup from a small business. It's really that tech component. But having said that, there's lots of different tech-based startups and solutions, everything from e-commerce, websites through to, new software applications, artificial intelligence applications. So there is and marketplaces. So there's lots that falls under that banner. And we certainly cover the spectrum. We have around about 250 startups here in our Sydney-based hub, and then we also have 100 startups in Brisbane. So it's been a thriving community, not thriving so much at the moment, obviously, as we've seen a lot of our startups and small businesses, but certainly an area that we continue to invest in and that governments invest in as well.
And it's interesting that we saw, once again, small business leading from the front. It was small business who came up with this idea and then spreading it globally because the need was there. Just in general, do you think small businesses are a little bit better at coming up with these ideas and experimenting with them and fleshing them out, and then government goes, oh, okay, that's a good idea, I think we'll support this? Is that fairly typical of what you see, given that you work with a lot with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I think, it's any sort of movement usually comes from the grassroots. I think community is such a powerful force for, developing new innovative ways of approaching, different issues that, we have. And as we can see, obviously with community radio plays such a fabulous role in bringing, unheard voices, to the rest of the community. So, yeah, absolutely. I think definitely it was a grassroots movement. And, these are really switched on smart people that are about solving, problems. And so, yeah, they absolutely, I think, showed government and the rest of the world that this was a great initiative for creating jobs and bringing new ideas and, products and services to market.
Let's chat about the actual process, because I think that if you're not part of that community and you haven't been through it yourself, it can seem like a little bit of an emerald city which you can't really grasp. Can you explain to me how people get involved with the program, and then maybe through the step-by-step process of what going through that actually means?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's not a rigorous process to actually become a member of, and we're actually, Fishburner, is an incubator rather than an accelerator. So we are very much interested in early stage, entrepreneurs. And so really you just need to have a good idea. And we tend to like it to be tech-based because we know that it's something that can be scaled. So it's really just understanding what the idea is and then connecting you into the community that we have. And it's very much a peer-based, model where we sort of say, okay, you come into Fishburners and you'll be with a heap of other like-minded entrepreneurs who are really going to support you on your journey, as well as having more structured weekly learning events, opportunities to do, to pitch your idea to investors, as well as a sort of a digital platform that we provide lots of educational resources and content for. So, but having said that, we do run more structured programs as well that people need to apply for. I've got one at the moment that is for women. We find obviously it can be a bit daunting. There are some, barriers to women coming into, startup hubs. Particularly there's financial barriers, but also I think it, as you sort of, referred to, that Emerald City, and it's been a very male-dominated environment, and so we do a lot to encourage women to take their ideas to the next level. And so that program is a scholarship program for women. That is currently open to applications if any of your listeners are interested in applying, and they can find that on our website.
Fantastic. And that's really important that we understand those programs, particularly at the moment when we're reading in the newspaper and looking in the media that women have been hardest hit when it comes to job losses at the moment. I'll come back to that whole where we're at and what you think the economy is going to do after this phase. But you mentioned before that you are an incubator, not an accelerator. What's the difference?
The key difference is really the stage of the startup. So incubators are designed very much for in the early stages, when you're very much at that idea stage. And so it's really about providing sort of mentoring and support for you to take your idea to the next level. An accelerator really is at the point where you've got a validated idea, and you are in a position where you want to start to raise money to grow it. So an accelerator is really about accelerating that process. Quite often accelerators will invest money within the startup on the basis of getting some equity back in return further down the track. So I think that's probably the key difference.
So one is almost education-based, and to me the word incubator sounds a little bit more nurturing and
Absolutely.
community-based, whereas an accelerator looks like, look, we just want to kind of rocket ship this idea. We're going to invest in it. We're going to bring in more venture capitalists, I guess, and get it off the ground, but they might have some educational sides to things as well.
Exactly.
And it's up to, I guess, the individual organisation how they choose to run their program. So there might be universities out there who have incubators, or there might be those out there who have accelerators. It's really interesting to hear the difference.
Yes.
Talk to me about why community and that notion of community amongst small business is such an important fundamental building block for the idea of an incubator.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, any small business person, entrepreneur starting out with you, it's a lonely journey. And, you're starting out on your own, and you're usually bootstrapping yourself to get a business off the ground. So having the support of other people, like-minded people who are doing the same thing, many of who have been, on those journeys before with different ideas that maybe have failed or succeeded, is invaluable in terms of giving you that confidence to go it alone, but also in terms of learning, what's gone on before you and being able to draw on those experiences.
And so do you have people who have at variety of, how long
Absolutely.
can you stay in the incubator? I mean, for me, it seems so nice and warm and cozy. I'd want to stay there forever and just keep getting that support.
Yeah, look, you stay for as long as you need, but obviously there gets a point where if you get to a certain size, when you get to a sort of a size where you've got a team of 10 people, we tend to exit people on to other, hubs. And usually by that stage, they're wanting to go to their own sort of serviced office by then. So, but look, within that 5 years, you'll get people that have come in with a particular idea. It hasn't been validated. So they've had to pivot or come up with something completely different, or perhaps they've met another co-founder within, the space, and they've teamed up with them, and they've both decided that they're going to work together on one of their ideas or a completely different idea, which is what happened to the founder of Koala Mattresses. He came and he had many startups that he had stopped and started, and was at the point, I think, of despair when he was chatting with another founder over coffee, and they came up with this idea, which is now, an incredibly successful business. I believe just been valued at just over 150 million. So one of the luckier ones. It can be a long road, but, Danny had been going for many years before he came to that idea. And so it really depends on your objectives as well. The objectives of some founders is really just to do something they're passionate about and to, earn a living. For others, it's about, scaling and being the next Atlassian. So it's, and everything in between.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, do you want a unicorn, or do you want to just be able to stand on your own 2 feet?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about the pitch nights that you have, because I know that they are quite well attended for people outside the incubator, outside Fishburners as well, to come along, because it's a great experience to be able to pitch to your colleagues or your community first. How does that fit into the way that Fishburners works?
Well, the pitch nights they're not only a great opportunity to inspire, all those other budding entrepreneurs out there, but they're a fabulous opportunity for our founders to get up in front of an audience and practice pitching their idea and getting audience feedback. There's a panel of judges, but there's also the opportunity for the audience to participate as well in asking questions and judging those pitches at the end of the evening. So it's a really valuable way for startups to articulate, the problem that they're solving and identifying, the key issues that they need to address prior to getting in front of a VC, for instance, when they're at that point where they're really wanting to raise funding to go to the next level.
And is that one of the things that makes Fishburners unique, or is that fairly fundamental to all of the different incubators?
I think we're famous. I think we would have to claim that territory, that we're definitely famous for our pitch nights. We've been doing them for such a long time now, and we've done them relentlessly every Friday evening prior to COVID for many years now. And so absolutely is something that people really love to get involved with. And we usually have about 200 to 300 people here every Friday evening, and they're not just here for the beer and pizza. They're here to hear what are the great ideas. It's such a fascinating way to hear about how this industry works and the ideas that people are coming up with, and so many other ideas have been inspired by attending a pitch night. We have so many new startups come into Fishburners as a result of having attended a pitch night previously.
It's such an awesome way to really use that community vibe and that spirit to encourage participation. I love the way also of collaboration and feedback from the audience. It's not just about the panel of judges or the VCs. It's about hearing from your community about what they think of your idea. Tell me about in your, with your swathe of experience and industry experience, particularly in this space, what do you think the next 5 years looks like for the startup field?
Look, I think it looks good. The great thing about startups is that they don't need a lot to get started. You don't need a lot to get a good idea off the ground, particularly if it's if it is tech based. You don't need a factory. You don't need a shop floor. There's so many fantastic solutions already out there that people can tap into if they do have a good idea. I think the great thing is there's a lot of support out there for startups. I mean, the government. And particularly now, regional governments have realised how powerful it is to nurture startups in terms of, creating new jobs and new ideas. And so I do think that, the future looks bright. I mean, clearly, a lot of industries and sectors have been severely impacted by COVID, the startup community included. I mean, if you were a startup working in travel or education, you've certainly been significantly impacted by COVID. But, having said that, a lot of startups are very resilient, and because most of them are serial entrepreneurs, if one idea fails, the next one's sort of sitting there in the pipeline. So I think, absolutely, the future looks bright. I think the way startups might engage with startup hubs like Fishburners will certainly potentially look a little bit different. And we've been working on addressing that during this period by providing more online resources. We're about to launch a new Founders Hub so that we can really provide the resources and the connections that startups need anywhere, anytime. But we're also looking at providing more flexible memberships. I think a lot of people have realised they can work productively from home, and so we need to be able to provide new ways of addressing those needs. And so providing that flexibility and doing things like a part-time membership where people can come and hang out here for a couple of days but maybe spend the rest of the time at home, just so they get that face-to-face connection and that vibe and the ability to connect with other people, which, as we've seen, is not so easy to do online. I mean, Zoom's great, but, it certainly has its limitations.
Exactly, yeah. You do. I was curious to know how you're dealing with that loss of community and loss of human connection, because I think when you are starting out, whether you're in an incubator or not, it's so important to have other people to bounce ideas off, but also just to have that being surrounded by other humans Absolutely. Who are going through the same process. I mean, I can't imagine mothers groups, going online for the same reason. And so that's an interesting thing, is that you think there'll be a bit of a cross-pollination between online learning and being in-house. How do you think that's going to affect the landscape in the city, though? Because part of being in the city is being surrounded by so many different people. Mm-hmm. Do you think it'll change the vibe?
Absolutely. I've got to say it does worry me whenever I hear, this talk of the future of work is here and people are going to be working from home. It worries me because so much of the infrastructure in our cities have been built around having all of these workers come into the city, and so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and for how long. I just wonder how long people will feel that this working from home, concept is as great as they think it might have been over the last couple of months, or whether people are going to feel that they're really missing the connection of coming in and hanging out with their colleagues and going out for lunch and grabbing a coffee. And it is potentially going to be very different in the city. I'm sitting in the city right now, and it's been like a ghost town for the last couple of months.
What about the diversification of having more of these co-working spaces or these community small business hubs in the outer suburbs? I mean, we're doing well in the regional areas, but I feel as though the outer ring of Sydney have been really left behind with this, even though we're trying to work and live closer to home. Would you like to see more of these incubators and things like that, or small business community hubs in the outer suburbs? Do you think that's a solution?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's at the end of the day, you have to go where your market is. And so, we've seen how fabulous it's been to have the cars off the road. And so bringing services like, startup incubators and accelerators and other services out to where, a lot of the population are makes a lot of sense.
Indeed.
It's just going to take a little bit of time, I think, for us to
and also to try and convince the government that is actually a need. Look, exactly. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us here on Small Biz Matters on the 6th anniversary edition. Thank you very much for being here for our special show. Where can people find out more about Fishburners?
If they just go to fishburners.org, we've got lots of information on our website, and we run tours all the time. We welcome you. We're back open for business, and whilst, where pitch nights haven't resumed yet, they shouldn't be too far off. So check out the website. All the details are on there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Now we're going to take some community service announcements, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Dale Beaumont, the founder of Business Blueprint, all about really nailing those processes and procedures. You're listening to Triple H 100.1 FM.